Hello, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to a new revision session. So, how are you all doing? I hope all of you had a lovely Diwali. Yes. And now we are back to study. So, Karnataka set exam will happen on the 2nd of November. So, we have to revise for that exam, right? So, from today onwards till the exam, we will be revising for the Karnataka set exam. All right? Great. So if you are new to our channel, then please do subscribe. And if you're watching this video right now, then please do like this video. And welcome to the session 1 of Vallath Karnataka set revision. This is our first session of Karnataka set revision. Until the exam, we will be revising for this exam. Okay? All right. So are you all ready for this session? Yes. Good evening. Good evening. Hello, everyone. And welcome to this session. Yes. Good evening. So I hope all of you are very excited. And I'm also really looking forward to this session with you all. All right. So welcome again. And now let's get started with our session tonight. And please do like it. Okay. And now let's dive into the session straight away. So here is the first question for tonight. Ready? Here we go. Uh-oh. You have the answer. But what is a miracle play? A miracle play was a medieval European drama based on the lives, miracles, or martyrdom of saints. This play is also known as saints' plays, originated from the liturgical drama, but eventually moved outside the church, often performed by craft guilds. Now tell me, which is the most popular morality play? Tell me, which is the most important morality play? Which is the most important morality play? Tell me. Every Man. Every Man is the most popular morality play. Every Man is the most popular morality play. All right? Very good. Next question. The Trauma of Birth is a 1924 book by Dash. The chief purpose of the work, according to the author, is elaboration of how the form of the womb expresses the protective forms of art, myth, religion, philosophy, and culture. So, who wrote this book, The Trauma of Birth? Can you tell me who wrote this book, The Trauma of Birth? It talks about the form of the womb. Womb. Tell me, it's a very important work. The Trauma of Birth. It is by Otto Rank. Otto Rank wrote the book, The Trauma of Birth. Please look up this writer. Okay, Otto Rank wrote the book, The Trauma of Birth. And it's a reminder for you all that please do look up trauma studies. Do look up the works of trauma studies, especially those by Kathy Karuth, Kali Tal, Shoshana Feldman. Okay, trauma studies can be important. Do look up the works of trauma studies by Kathy Karuth, Shoshana Feldman, Kali Tal. Okay, trauma studies can be important. Next, what is Stanley Fish's phrase? for groups of people who share common interpretive strategies such as linguistic conventions and assumptions which determine how they read, understand, and assign meaning to a text. Because according to Stanley Fish, the meaning of a text is not inherent in the text itself, but is created by the shared practices of the readers within a community. Okay, so tell me, which phrase was used by this reader response critique, Stanley Fish, for groups of people who share common interpretive strategy? Which phrase was used by Stanley Fish to describe this? People using common strategies to read texts. Stanley Fish, reader response critique, he had used the phrase interpretive communities. Interpretive communities. And Stanley Fish had introduced this concept of the interpretive communities in his 1976 essay, Interpreting the Variorum, which later became a part of his 1980 book, Is There a Text in This Class? The Authority of Interpretive Communities. Okay, so Stanley Fish had described, or Stanley Fish had coined the phrase interpretive communities for groups of people who share common interpretive strategies such as linguistic conventions and assumptions which determine how they read, understand, and assign meaning to a text. And he had coined this concept in the essay Interpreting the Variorum, which later became a part of his book, Is There a Text in This Class? Okay, clear? All right, very good. So it's a reminder for you all to read and look up reader response criticism. Reader response critiques like Norman Holland, Stanley Fish will be very important. Reader response criticism. Okay? Okay, next. The Canterbury Tales is set in which month? Tell me. Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales. It is set in which month? Tell me. Here we see that a group of pilgrims are going to visit the shrine of St. Thomas Becket. And before they set off on their journey, they are resting at the Tabard Inn, where the host is Harry Bailey. And it is decided that each of them will tell a story. The knight is the first pilgrim to arrive at the Tabard Inn. Here the narrator is Chaucer himself. So they're making this pilgrimage in which month? It is in the month of April. They're going for this pilgrimage in the month of April. Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales. Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales. Very important. All right. Okay. Next. The 1948 Nobel Prize in Literature was awarded to Dash for his outstanding pioneer contribution to present day poetry. So, who received the 1948 Nobel Prize in Literature? Tell me. Today, also, during the CUET PG orientation, we were talking about this if you watched it. Who got the 1948 Nobel Prize in Literature? It was T.S. Eliot. It was T.S. Eliot. So it's a reminder for you all to look up the chronology in literature. Will you all do that? Do look up the chronology of Nobel Prize in Literature. Chronology of Nobel Prize in Literature. Okay? Right. Tell me who got the Nobel Prize in 1923? Who got the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1923? It was W.B. Yeats. It was W.B. Yeats. Very good. Next. So before we proceed, I want to give you all a reminder that we have already started our CUET PG course. Yes. So if you want to enroll, if you want to get into master's program at central universities, you have to appear for this exam, right? And if you want to appear for this exam, our CUET PG course will really help you, right? So our CUET PG course has already started. If you want to enroll for this course, you can just contact us. There is number on the screen where you can contact us. All right? Very good. Next question. I'm Nobody. Who Are You? Is a short lyric poem by Dash, first published posthumously in 1891 in Poems Series 2. Tell me. I Am Nobody. Who Are You? Is a short lyric poem by whom? She was known as the Belle of Amherst. She was known as the Belle of Amherst. Who wrote I Am Nobody? Who Are You? It's a short lyric poem by Emily Dickinson. Emily Dickinson. Her poems can be very important. Do look up her poem once, okay? Do look up her poems once. Right? Will you all do that? Yes. Emily Dickinson, then Sylvia Plath, Anne Sexton. They can be important. All right? Yes. That also reminds me to look up the poems of Kamala Das. Okay? Do look up the poems of Elizabeth Bishop. Right? Yes. The Bacchae is an ancient Greek tragedy by Dash, written by Dash during his final years in Macedonia at the court of Archelaus I of Macedon. So, who wrote this ancient Greek tragedy called the Bacchae? Today itself, in the CUET PG session, we were talking about these works which were very important, which were written during the period of Greek classicism. You all should look up the writers of Greek classicism like Aeschylus, Sophocles, Euripides, Aristophanes, Menander. You should read more about Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, all the philosophers and playwrights of Greek classicism. And also, Sappho can be important. Sappho was a contemporary of Homer. Right? Now tell me, who wrote this ancient Greek tragedy called the Bacchae? It is by Euripides. Euripides was a tragedian of the Greek classical period, and his most important play is Medea. Medea is a revenge tragedy by Euripides. Euripides was a tragedian of the Greek classical period. Okay? Very good. Next. The Orestia trilogy of Aeschylus is the earliest example of Dash. Just now I talked about it. That Medea is a kind of Dash. So the Orestia trilogy of Aeschylus. Again, Aeschylus is the father of tragedy. Aeschylus was also a classical Greek tragedian. Aeschylus is known as the father of tragedy. He wrote the Orestia trilogy. Which plays were there in the Orestia trilogy? There were Agamemnon, the libation bearers, and the Eumenides. Agamemnon, the libation bearers, and the Eumenides. There's three plays are there in the Orestia trilogy of Aeschylus. Aeschylus was the earliest tragedian of the Greek classical period. He's the father of tragedy. And his Orestia trilogy is the earliest example of revenge tragedy. His Orestia trilogy is the earliest example of a revenge tragedy. A revenge tragedy became very prominent during the Jacobean period. revenge tragedy became very prominent during the Jacobean period, when we had dramatists like John Webster, who wrote revenge tragedies like The Duchess of Malfi, The White Devil. Even Shakespeare wrote revenge tragedies like Hamlet. Hamlet is a very popular revenge tragedy. We all have read about it. Hamlet is a revenge tragedy. Think about Thomas Kate's The Spanish Tragedy. Thomas Kate's The Spanish Tragedy. The Spanish tragedy of Hieronimo is Mad Again. That's also a revenge tragedy. But the earliest revenge tragedy was written by Aeschylus. Aeschylus's Oresteia trilogy is the earliest example of revenge tragedy. Okay? Aeschylus's Oresteia trilogy is the earliest example of revenge tragedy. And later on, we have Euripides, Medea by Euripides. That's also a revenge tragedy. Medea by Euripides. That's also a revenge tragedy. Okay? Very good. Next. Who talked about flat and round characters? Easy question. Tell me. Who talked about flat and round characters? Who talked about flat and round characters? Very good. E.M. Foster talked about flat and round characters in aspects of the novel. E.M. Foster talked about flat and round characters in aspects of the novel. Okay? Next. Now, what I want is facts. Teach these boys and girls nothing but facts. Facts alone are wanted in life. This is the opening line of which novel of Dickens? Tell me. This is the opening line of which novel of Dickens? This novel was published in 1854. And this is the only novel of Dickens which was not set in London. It is set in Coketown. This is the only novel of Dickens which is not set in London. It is set in Coketown. And it has a tripartite structure. This novel has three sections: sowing, ripping, garnering. Sowing, ripping, garnering. So this is the opening line of the novel, Hard Times. Hard Times, subtitled For These Times. It was published in 1854. It was the only novel not set in London. It was the only novel of Dickens not set in London. It is set in Coketown. And this novel is famous for attacking the movement of utilitarianism. And hence, it was dedicated to his fellow scholar, Thomas Carlyle, because Thomas Carlyle was also against utilitarianism. And through this line, now what I want is facts. It is critiquing the movement of utilitarianism of 19th century. This is the opening line of Dickens's Hard Times. And this novel has a tripartite structure. It has three sections called sowing, ripping, garnering. Okay? Opening lines, closing lines of novels will be important. Opening lines and closing lines of novels will be important. Okay? Very good. Next. What's terrible is to pretend that second rate is first rate. To pretend that you don't need love when you do, or you like your work when you know quite well you are capable of better. So this was written by Doris Lessing in which novel? These lines were written by Doris Lessing in which novel? This novel was actually a feminist manifesto. This novel by Doris Lessing was a feminist manifesto. Can you guess which novel is it where she wrote these lines? Tell me. Wrote these lines in the novel? The Golden Notebook. Most important work of Lessing. The Golden Notebook. The Golden Notebook. There she wrote, what's terrible is to pretend that second rate is first rate. To pretend that you don't need love when you do. These lines were written by Doris Lessing. The Golden Notebook. Okay? Got it? Are you all following? Are you all enjoying? Yes, tell me. Have you all liked the session? Yes. Have you all liked the session? Very good. Okay. Next. Dash by Elaine Showalter traces the history of British women novelists from the Bronte sisters to Doris Lessing, arguing for the existence of a distinct female literary tradition. And Showalter divides this tradition into three phases: the feminine, the feminist, and female, and examines how women writers navigated social constraints while developing their own literary identity. So, Showalter talked about all this in which work? She talked about the feminine, the feminist, and the female traditions of writing. Tell me. Yes, she talked about all this in her work, A Literature of Their Own. A Literature of Their Own. And in this work, she talked about British women novelists from Bronte sisters to Doris Lessing. Clear? Is it clear to you? Very good. Very good. Let's move on to the next question, shall we? Yes, please do read more about Elaine Showalter, read more about Julia Kristeva, read more about Betty Friedan, Simone de Beauvoir. Okay? Read more about these theorists. Kate Millett. Then, who wrote The Mad Woman in the Attic? The Mad Woman in the Attic is by, let me know in the comments. The Mad Woman in the Attic. Very important text. Okay, next. The Making of the English Working Class is a work of English social history by E.P. Thompson, a new left historian. True or false? Tell me. Is it true or false that E.P. Thompson wrote The Making of the English Working Class? Is it true or false? E.P. Thompson is important. Raymond Williams is important. Stuart Hall. Yes, true. The Making of the English Working Class is a work of English social history by E.P. Thompson. It is by E.P. Thompson. Okay? Yes. Very good. Next. Force Clavigera. Letters to the workmen and laborers of Great Britain. So this was the name given by Dash to a series of letters addressed to British workmen during the 1870s. They were published in the form of pamphlets. So who wrote it? Who wrote this series of letters called Force Clavigera? Letters to the workmen and laborers of Great Britain. Tell me who wrote it? Tell me who wrote it? It was written by none other than John Ruskin. John Ruskin was an art critic and scholar from the 19th century. He was a very popular scholar of the Victorian period. He supported the Pre-Raphaelites. He coined the phrase pathetic fallacy in his book Modern Painters. So Matthew Arnold and John Ruskin are very important. They supported the movement of art for life's sake. Art for life's sake, which stood in contrast to art for art's sake. Okay, Ruskin and Matthew Arnold were supporters of art for life's sake. Matthew Arnold, John Ruskin, Thomas Carlyle, very important scholars from the Victorian period. And John Ruskin wrote Fors Clavigera. All right. Okay. And here we have the last question for tonight. The Man with Night Sweats by Dash is one of the most moving and acclaimed poems in the 1992 collection of the same name, which deals with loss, love, and the AIDS crisis. So, who wrote this poem? The Man with Night Sweats. The Man with Night Sweats. Very heart touching poem on the crisis of AIDS and love, loss, death. Tell me who wrote The Man with Night Sweats? It is by Tom Gunn. Tom Gunn wrote The Man with Night Sweats. Okay. Okay, so we have one more question, surprise. Which among the following is not a work of Foucault? Which among the following is not a work of Foucault? The Birth of the Clinic, Technologies of Self, The Logic of Sense, Abnormal. Which among the following is not a work of Foucault? Tell me. Which among the following is not by Foucault? Foucault has not written one of these works. Which one is that? The Birth of the Clinic is by Foucault. Technologies of the Self is by Foucault. Abnormal is by Foucault. But the Logic of Sense is by Deleuze. The Logic of Sense is by Deleuze. It's not by Foucault. All right. So that's all from our side for tonight. I really hope you guys loved the session and enjoyed these questions. And before we wrap up the session for tonight, I just want to remind you that we have already started our CUET PG course. If you want to enroll, please do so. There's a number on the screen. You can contact us. So that's all then for tonight. And I will see you all again tomorrow, exactly at 9 p.m. at our Vallath YouTube channel. So please don't worry. We will bring more revision sessions for you all. We will revise a lot more with you till your exam. So don't worry at all. Just keep revising. Stay healthy. And don't forget to join me tomorrow as well at 9 p.m. at our Vallath channel. So let's wrap up for tonight then. Do take care, good night, and do like the session, please. Okay? On that note, bye bye, take care, good night,